afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another instructional Propagandacast Lehr with me, your host, Imperial Dane. We're off here to cover the Universal Carrier, this time the light vehicle available to the British right straight from the headquarters. The main building, 210 manpower, 15 fuel. What do you get? Well, you get something that can do a bit of this, and that essentially starts out as a transport vehicle with a small Bren gun sort of supporting. It can be used to move units around. Note, though, troops cannot fire out of it. So it's exquisite, well, more or less just for moving troops about and also taking points there with it, since of course troops can take points while inside the transport. So you can, for example, use it to sort of quickly move ahead, though you can't queue up orders with it. So you have to sort of, in some senses, pay more attention to it, but otherwise you can sort of more swiftly move from point to point to point to grab. Of course, that's probably not going to do, but you can also then use sort of quickly flank an opponent, moving them into a good position using the Universal Carrier, then pop them out, also protect them from fire. I mean, it does already then, in two senses, sort of do a bit of job there as a sort of little taxi, if you will, if of course you want to utilise that. Of course, it also has access to sort of use upgrades, including the Vickers K, cheap, it will add 60 munitions, add some more machine gun firepower, which you can use to harm infantry more aggressively. Also, that suppression ability, though, of course, nope. Unit in cover, you can't really directly suppress it, though of course you can do sort of stop up a unit out in the open, quickly suppress them with that, for example, or flank a unit and sort of suppress them with that. Note that of course it pretty much is only an arc here in front of it, so you know it's not a turret thing. And of course for 90 munitions, if you upgrade to the command post there, you can also pop up a flamethrower on it, which generally has a good range and also does a lot of damage, really sort of where it sort of kicks in. Though note, that's getting a bit nerfed here with the upcoming patch. At the same time, the Universal Carrier itself is also going to get a buff towards dealing with snipers, with and without upgrades. So that's a little thing there to keep in mind. But of course you might be wondering here, what else can you do with the Universal Carrier? So of course, yes, transporting troops about. I mean, generally no, you want to sort of either use sort of a light harasser flanker vehicle, you know, either with or without flamethrower, but generally depending on how you, of course, you sort of want to deal with the enemy. I mean, the flamethrower is sort of more for dealing, you know, dug-in opponents, a lot of support weapons, and the likes. The Vickers is sort of, you know, more for dealing with troops you can sort of quickly catch out in the open and flank them and otherwise. Since that's generally where that sort of, you know, functions and the best. I mean, if you've got an opponent who's really dug in, grab up the flamethrower. If you're sort of dealing with units or opponents sort of running around in the open match, you've got sort of a lot of open flanks, use the Vickers to sort of deal with them that way. Plus again, you know, you can also use a bit of suppressing fire, 10 munitions, and it's a bit of an AoE suppression. So for some larger force coming in, suppress that as well. So that way you can also sort of initially punish blobbers a bit. But overall, otherwise you generally sort of want it to support your troops. You want them sort of be at the front line. You don't want that taking hits, because it can't really take many hits from heavier weapons. So you sort of want, you know, say your infantry to spot ahead for it and draw out maybe some fires from an unwary anti-tank gun like Kedmeth or some Panzerschreck gentlemen, because otherwise it will quickly go up. I mean, at veterans you want, it does gain the ability to self-repair, and eventually fleet that ability does become better, but generally that's not the sort of risk-taking you want to do with your Universal Carrier, despite the upgrades there, of course. But overall, it's a potent little vehicle. Considering the cost, it can do quite a few things, and if you sort of keep it well, you know, used, and again, so you ensure don't move it straight into the heaviest of the fire, you can generally do pretty well for it. Sort of good, you know, for sort of quickly hitting any unit that's a bit exposed there, flank, you know, open, move up the Universal Carrier with the Vickers, then sort of just begin firing away at those dastardly Huns and deal with them. Of course, another thing to sort of trick to sort of keep in mind, you know, sort of dealing with, you know, again, consider the terrain. And then it's primarily sort of dealing with anti-tank weapons and the likes. You know, try and figure out where is my opponent more likely to sort of have an anti-tank weapon to sort of deal with it, and then, you know, try and sort of set up the Universal Carrier so that there's something usually behind these. For example, here, you know, what's moving up here, infantry there. I figured, you know, he could have one here, in which case, you know, use this piece of terrain here to sort of basically block the fire line. You sort of operate where you want here, but at the same time, so you aren't so easily hit by anti-tank weapons. For example, if you're operating here, try and use the buildings here to sort of, you know, make it as difficult as possible for your opponent to use his anti-tank weapons against you. I mean, those are little details I think can sort of do to keep them more alive, but always remember, it's not a tank. It's not going to there to resist a lot of fire. What you do have is something that can generally do quite a bit of damage if you handle it correctly at a reasonably low price, and that also means that if you lose one, I mean, in the greater scale of things, you can easily replace it. I mean, one Universal Carrier down, oh well, I'll get another one. I mean, unless you've got some specific plan in mind, I mean, generally, it's 15 munitions. It's not going to be a huge thing, as long as you play your cards correctly. And sometimes, I mean, and that's also another thing, your opponent won't expect more universal carriers. So you can usually sort of catch a bit off guard with that if you play correctly. But again, remember, it's not a tank. It's a neat little thing that has several sort of possibilities, how you use it, and so on. I mean, again, depending on what you upgrade, either use it as a flanker, though even with a flamethrower, you can use it as a flanker, though it's not quite as sort of fully suited for that. And of course, with the Vickers, it also works better for pursuits. And with the update, it'll likely also work quite nicely as a sniper hunter, really. So, of course, there's a little thing there to consider as well. Depending on what you're dealing with, of course, you want to be a bit careful about rushing in too far ahead. Again, the idea about using infantry to move ahead of it, you know, spot ahead, screen ahead, ensure it's not easily cleared out. So again, remember, it's more or less a support vehicle and a flanker. Overall, what you shouldn't be doing is charging in on its own with absolutely no line of sight. If you're doing that, you're very likely to lose it, and in that case, that's more or less your own fault. So keep that in mind. But overall, I think sort of, you know, nicely covers universal carry here. Neat little vehicle, capable of several things if you handle it correctly, in particular with the upgrades. So there you go. Hopefully this has been an enlightening little video that should give you a better grasp of the universal carrier and what it is capable of. If you watch, you know, feel free to subscribe, tell your friends, share it with everyone. The more that see it, the better. And if not, well, that's quite unfortunate. But thank you all for watching, and hope to see you another time. Bye.